Hello, everyone, and welcome to this on-demand session. My name is Rachit Malik, and today I'm going to be helping you accelerate your journey to Microsoft 365 Copilot by building your first custom Copilot connector. And we're going to be diving into some tooling and demos. So, as I said before, I'm Rachit, and I am a product manager on the agent developer platform team. And we're really focused on helping you build agents easier and the developer experience as you go through that process. And to start this session, we have to take a step back and talk about Copilot. So, Copilot is designed to be your personal assistant for work. And how can a personal assistant for work be successful is when it is grounded on the real enterprise data that you use on a daily basis. And you may ask me, Rachit, what if my data is not inside Microsoft 365 and not inside Microsoft 365 Copilot? As we all probably know, Microsoft 365 Copilot has a variety of knowledge sources. You have general knowledge, you have enterprise knowledge, including data in the graph, and you have data in additional external data sources that you may have. And so at the end of the day, your AI strategy is anchored in your data strategy. And so today we're going to focus on your business knowledge and your enterprise data that lives in a variety of different sources. And how do you bring that into Copilot to make your business process more efficient? So with that in mind, I hope everyone is super excited. I will dive into a little bit about how Microsoft Copilot works. So Microsoft Copilot is able to map your organizational data into an advanced lexical and semantic index to help power search relevance and accuracy. So this way, when you search for something and when you type in a query into Copilot, it's able to actually understand it and then pull in the relevant grounding information and provide you the right answer. And today we're going to be specifically talking about Copilot connectors and what is actually helps to bring in the data into this semantic index. And so by leveraging this, your agent or even the Microsoft 365 Copilot chat can provide more relevant and contextual results and adhere to existing security and privacy policies. So what are Copilot connectors? We've been talking about this for some time now. And these are essentially using the Microsoft Graph APIs to index data from other systems. So you have your line of business API, you have your file system. You can connect to the Microsoft Graph API and actually ingest these items, which are then semantically indexed and can be used as grounding information for the large language model to provide answers to your questions. So what are some good candidates for Copilot connectors, you may ask? You could look at document repositories. Well, this goes to the next slide. Knowledge bases, websites, content management systems, and so on. And today what we're going to be focusing on is some new tooling in M365 Agents Toolkit. And this now has support for custom Copilot connectors. So the goal here is to be able to help you get started with your first custom connector and then take that forward as a solid starting point to then be able to customize it to your own data source, your own REST API. We aim to give you a really fast inner loop to be able to test your data in Copilot in the same familiar space as agents. So inside the Microsoft 365 Agents Toolkit. So what are we waiting for? Let's get straight into the demo. And I'm going to switch over to Visual Studio Code in just a second. Now I'm in Visual Studio Code and all I need to do is make sure that I have the M365 Agents Toolkit extension installed. Once I do, I can click it on the left-hand side and then I just need to create a new agent or app. In this, you would see a new Copilot connector option. So we click that, and we can create a name for this. So I'm gonna call it connector 4. And then I'm gonna select a connection ID for this. So this has to be unique to your tenant and has a set of rules that it must follow. And so as you can see here, we have some validation where you cannot enter a connection ID that's less than 3 characters. So I'm just going to call it GitHub GH connector 4. I'm going to choose the default folder here. And boom, I have now a starting point to actually build a custom connector. So this may look overwhelming, but fear not. It is super easy to get started. As a developer, all you have to do is open your environment file and modify this connector repos field to select which repository, in this case GitHub repository, you want your data to come from. So we are giving you a start with using the GitHub API and GitHub Issues API to be specific, to index all GitHub issues from a specific repo. But you can customize this to use your own line of business API. And all you have to do for that is look for specific customization points in the code. So if I do a search for the word customization point, you can see here all the parts of the code that you need to modify, clearly marked out to use data from your own line of business API. We do all the hard work for you. We connect to the Graph API, we register the connection, we register the schema, we create the connection, and we actually create the ingestion logic as well. The crawl service, for example, helps you generically crawl your data source and start ingesting items. And all you have to do is just modify the model of your data, which is in this case specific to what the template provides, which is the GitHub issue, but this can be customized to your needs. So once I do that, it is a F5 experience, and I'm going to show you how you can get started with this within minutes to truly understand the value of your data within Copilot. So I'm going to click Run Without Debugging, and it's going to start the application. It's going to start installing all the dependencies first, and then it's going to create what's called an enter app. And the next step after that is you're going to have to consent or provide permissions to this app to actually access the Graph API so it can start ingesting the items into the semantic index we talked about. And it will then register the schema, and that's what you define within the item.ts file here. And then finally, it will start the ingestion process. And in this case, it will probably start a full crawl. And then once the full crawl is completed, it will do incremental crawls to capture data that has not been captured in the full crawl. So while this installs dependencies, go and grab yourself a coffee, stretch your leg, and we'll be back. And we're back with the magic of editing. Now, as you can see here, it successfully provisioned the Enter app, and you can see the details of this within the AAD manifest.json. But it did go ahead and create an Enter application, and now the next step is for it to continue the execution and then prompt us with a link to the Enter Admin Center, where we can allow our app to access graph data, or as in give the app the required permissions to be able to push data into the graph. And as you can see here in the console, we have now a link to the Enter Admin Center. So when we click it, it should open up in our browser, directly from VS Code, mind you, to the registered app that we just made, Connector 4. And then we have to just grant admin consent. At this point, you would ask your admin to help you with this. We are working on improvements in the future where this is more seamless, where we don't have to have this step. But for now, this is how you proceed. And then I switch back to the VS Code, and I can see that right at the bottom here, the connector has created, the app has created the connection, and then is now creating the schema for this specific GitHub connector. So this is the other step where you might want to get a walk and go to the washroom while it registers. It should take under 10 minutes to do it. So we'll be back when the schema is registered. And the schema was just created. So as you can see, it prompts us in the console that we just created the schema. And now it's going to go ahead and start a full crawl. So as you can see, it's going through every single issue in the repository that we specified in our config. And then it's going to start ingesting these items into the graph. And now for the fun part. We get to go and actually see this data in action in Copilot within a few minutes. So you would need to go to the Microsoft Admin Center and then go into Search and Intelligence and click Data Sources. And here you would see all of the connections that have been created in your tenant. As you can see, I've been pretty busy. I've been creating a lot of different connections. And we just saw the connector 4 that we created with the ID 𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬𝗬 us to see this data within Microsoft 365 Copilot. So I click Save Changes, and good news, my changes were saved. And I'm going to rely on a connection that I've created previously here. So as you can see, this has, if you click on it, you can see the details of what the connection ID is and how many items are indexed. There are 27 items indexed. There is an index limit of 50 million items per tenant. And so you can ingest up to those items per connection. When you look at another connector that I was playing with, I have about, let me just click on the right one here. I have about 1,800 issues, and this is from one of the larger GitHub repositories that I work with. Tooling, and so you can achieve a pretty large number of items with this tooling. So going back, now we get to test it out into Microsoft 365 Copilot. And so if I'm going to quickly type in a query, so let's say I'm interested to find out what are the 5 latest issues in the JSON schemas repository. I have a prompt that is saved here. So I can quickly access it and see that the LLM is looking through its knowledge sources, and it did find a bunch of different issues. And as you can see here in the citations, we have external items referenced, and if you click on it, it goes into the JSON schemas repository, and you can directly access the issues. So that is your data that we just ingested within a few minutes, available within Copilot. And then you can customize this further to your needs after seeing the power here. So we're going to go one step further, and we're going to try to build an agent that leverages this data. So I'm going to go back into Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to create an agent this time. And I don't want to add an action, I want a simple agent. And I'm going to call it my GitHub agent, because I want it to be really hyper-focused on just the connector data that I just ingested. So I can click my GitHub agent here. If the demo gods are with me today, I can choose folder, and then I can select, just type in the name again, and boom, it creates me the agent code with the Power of Agents Toolkit. And now I can go into, I have 2 options here. I can go into my declarative agent.json, and I can manually add the capability here. Or I can click on my M365 Agents Toolkit button, and it's going to make sure that I'm signed in and everything. And I'm going to add a capability in declarative agent. So I can do that. And I can see here there's an option for Copilot connector. I can select an existing Copilot connector. So we created a bunch of connectors, but I'm going to choose the GitHub issue connector 2. And as you can see, it conveniently allows us to search through all the list of connectors in the tenant. It's going to give me a small warning message to say that it's going to modify my folder. And boom, here's the code. That's pretty much all you need to create an agent. You can even customize it by modifying the instructions here. So in this case, we're going to leave it as it is, but if you wanted to have a specific set of instructions that the agent needs to follow, you can do that there. And we're going to click provision here. And within a few seconds, we should have an agent that actually uses the data that we just ingested. And we can access that in Copilot. So I'm going to give it 1 second for it to provision. And we're going to go back into Copilot. I'm going to start a new chat, and we're going to refresh this page. And we should be able to see, if everything goes well, our agent in the sidebar. And I do in fact see it. I see my GitHub agent, the one we just created. And what we're going to do now is ask the same question. What are the 5 latest issues within in the Microsoft, cannot spell, JSON schemas for people. And boom, we have the data straight from the Graph connector, from the Copilot connector, excuse me. And you can see here in the debugger, you can see the connection ID that is being referenced is the exact same one that we used. And we have references, external item references to the data that we just ingested from the GitHub API. So thank you all so much for listening to this talk. You can get started with this today by going to aka.ms/build your first Copilot connector. And I'm looking forward to hearing your stories and feedback. Feel free to reach out to me. I will be at Build, and I will see you all soon. Thank you so much for listening, and have an amazing rest of your conference.